You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/ARTS. Just go to Indeed.com/ARTS right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Today is the 4th of July, a day that reminds us of the ideals this country was founded on: liberty, resilience, and the hope of unity. And while the road has never been smooth and the present can feel uncertain, there's something enduring that it continues to bring us together: the stage. Theater has always been a mirror, a refuge, and a rallying cry. It's where we tell our stories, challenge our perspectives, and find common ground, even when the world outside feels divided. So, on this Independence Day, we're not just celebrating history, we're celebrating the voices that still rise, the stories that still matter, and the communities that still gather together in the dark to share something beautiful. Welcome to Oklahoma On Stage.
Oklahoma on stage, the stories come alive with drama, dance, and music. The arts always thrive. From center stage to backstage lore, Oklahoma on stage, there's always something more.
Welcome back, everybody, to Oklahoma On Stage, your go-to podcast for all things theater in the state of Oklahoma. We're glad to have you back. As I mentioned previously, today, this episode will be dropping on July 4th. And so because of that, we have a very special guest today. Our guest today is a husband and father, as well as a stage and voice actor here in Oklahoma. But probably more outstanding than that, based on what I was just talking about with the date and all, my guest is an active member of the Air National Guard. So kind of very fitting for the July 4th. So would you join me today in welcoming Ryan Corley to our podcast? Ryan, welcome to Oklahoma On Stage.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
So, as I said, this episode will be dropping Friday, July 4th. So we want to first start off by saying thank you for your service. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
So this being a theater podcast, that's where we're going to just start things off. And I always like to start with the elephant in the room, and just tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got started in theater.
Yeah, of course. So I actually got started in my senior year of high school. I don't know what got into me. I was in music and band, and that was my whole gig. I loved everything about performing, and I was like, man, I think I really want to try and get into theater. And so I tried, and I never could get in. I never really got offered a part until one of my buddies who was in band with me was doing a student-directed play. And he gave me a chance, and it was Fawlty Towers, the old British comedy show that they turned into a stage play. And I was the drunken general, and it was such a good time. And so what was so cool about it is, like I said, my friend was the one who was doing it. So he was the one that allowed me on stage, and it was kind of my first gig in, and I ended up winning an award for Best Supporting Actor for that. And I was like, man, I think that this is something that I could really enjoy. But that was kind of it, because I was graduating. And then I had a scholarship to East Central University in Ada, and that was all for band and instrumental music. Thought I was going to be a band teacher. The world had different plans for me, but I got there, realized that I had a passion for mass comm, doing radio, video, photography, stuff like that. But my freshman year, my roommate came up to me. He's like, hey man, they're starting a musical theater program. They've never had one here. And basically, we just need a low voice. You don't have to be good. I was like, first off, what does that mean? Secondly, no, man, I'm out. I'm an instrumental music guy. Like I haven't really done theater. Um, and so he just kept on and kept on and kept on and kept pestering me. Finally, I was like, all right, man, I'll go. And I went and I loved it. I fell in love with it. We were in a little tiny black box theater. I jumped in the middle of us just, picking parts from Les Mis and kind of jumping into that and just doing chorus work. And the next year, we had a professor by the name of Patrick Sweet stepped in and took over the program. He was brand new to the campus, and he was a graduate of NYU, very gifted, like awesome talent. Decided to come here, older gentleman. He went to college later in his life. And he saw something in me that I didn't know about. And he was like, all right, you're going to take voice lessons with me. And I said, well, I don't know that I can. He's like, no, you're going to. And so I had kind of been forced into theater at this point. But I'm so happy that I was, because man, I fell in love with it, and specifically musical theater. So I started taking voice lessons and started getting principal roles and stuff at East Central. And man, I ran away with it, and I almost changed my major to it, but then thought, okay, financially, maybe I'll keep a better degree, but still do theater and musical theater. And I did it all the way up, pretty much up until my graduation. And I was doing auditions at Lyric. I got a call back for the principal role as Buddy Holly in a Buddy Holly story. But that summer I was marching drum and bugle corps, which is professional marching band for those that don't know, basically. And that was another one of my dreams. And I decided to go with that one. Well, I ended up pretty much blowing out my knee and not being able to do that one either. And so I'd shot myself in the foot, lost out on both of them. But then I took a long break. I got into law enforcement as my career. I did that for almost 10 years. And with that schedule, I was never able to go and do auditions. I was never able to get back into theater. And so this past year, I went and auditioned at Shawnee Little Theater, which is, my hometown. And my daughter, who was 8 years old at the time, she was like, Dad, I think I want to audition too. And so it was a really special moment that we got to be in a play together. And it was in A Christmas Carol, and I was Fred, and she was a little girl that was in so many different scenes, and she lit up the stage. And I'll never forget opening night. I'm nervous. It's my first show, and literally it had probably been closer to 13 years. And I'm nervous. I'm going through all my lines in my head, and I look at my daughter and I'm like, hey babe, are you nervous? And she was like, for what? And then she just marched right off. And I was like, well, all right, well, she's ready. But that's a rough overview. I still auditioned for Lyric. I got offered a swing understudy role for Christmas Carol, actually, coming up this winter season. And I will be understudying several different roles. I think it's like 5 or 6 in total. So it'll be an interesting pull to try and do that. Plus, be a dad, be a husband, work full time. But if I can pull it off, I think that'll give me a really good foot in the door for Lyric. They've seen me show up to auditions, and I think they're probably tired of seeing my face without just giving me a chance so they can shoo me off or something.
Yeah, some of them do that. They just say, well, let's go ahead and give him a role so we can get rid of him and move on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's cool. That's a really good story. I like the whole arch of it, the how it went from way back when to here recently. And I try to tell everybody that I talked to about you that I saw the performance of Christmas Carol, and I thought you did a phenomenal job. And for those of you who listen, if you ever get a chance to see something, Ryan has an amazing singing voice. Just want to throw that out there. So,
well, I appreciate that. If anybody wants to hear any of that, we're actually doing a veteran service at Heritage Baptist Church in Shawnee, Oklahoma on Thursday. That's the 3rd. And I'll be singing the national anthem for that. That's something that I've done for some of my military graduations, is sing the national anthem for them. But that's, again, I love musical theater, and that's kind of where my focus was. So that's why I took all the voice lessons and paid all the money.
There you go. There you go. So you've worked in both theater and voiceover. Can you tell us how the creative muscles differ for you?
Yeah. So voiceover is something that I've always been interested in. I mean, even since I before I got into theater and arts, playing a video game or watching a movie, I always thought, man, that voice is so fitting and so cool. Or, you'll hear an ad and you'll be like, oh gosh, I never want to hear that sound again. And so you kind of get these reflexes for it. And I've always had to do something creative. Even as a kid, I had to draw, color something. And so I got into voiceover because I didn't have the schedule to do theater. And I was like, man, I still want to act. I still want to be creative. And my brother, who has a firefighting podcast for the Air Force, he kind of got me set up. And he was like, listen, man, I think you need to do something in voice work. There's a few websites, audiobooks. And so the first thing I ever did actually was an audiobook. And they wanted like a full acting voiceover artist. And so I ended up voicing like 26 different characters. A lot of them are just slight variances, but some of them are British accents and heavy accents and deeper growl and stuff like that. And so I had to learn very quickly how to control all of that with voiceover and how different it is. But a lot of it really is the same. I mean, if you ever see me in my booth, if there was ever a camera on while I'm doing voice acting, it's no different than if I'm on the stage. I'm changing my face, I'm pulling away from the mic, I'm moving my whole body. And so voice acting was able to kind of fill in those gaps where I wasn't able to be on a stage and get that creative itch scratched, if you will, and just really kind of work on my repertoire, not only just in physical on stage, but now I get to do so many cool things while I'm at home and didn't even have to get dressed for the day, sipping on coffee. Like, it doesn't get much better than that. So I really kind of fell into voice acting and really enjoy that as well.
Very cool. So, what would you say has been your most challenging or rewarding role on stage thus far in your career?
Oh boy. The two that pop out to me the most would be from The Wiz. We did a black box show while I was in musical theater in Ada. So our musical ensemble for musical theater, we put on The Wiz, and I was Fleetwood Coupe de Ville. So, the Cowardly Lion. And I had to wear this giant wig, which I probably didn't need because at the time I was growing my hair out and it stands straight up as it is. So I pretty much have a built-in afro. But that one was hard. It was different. We didn't have a lot of time to rehearse it. And I was running across chairs on stage that were dressed up as platforms, and they would move. And so there was a lot of physicality to it as well. But I would say that the hardest role that I ever had to fill was Frederick Eggerman on A Little Night Music. And that, anything that Stephen Sondheim is just so technical, and there's a lot of words and there's a lot of dissonance in the chords. And so the music was very fast, a lot of words. So learning all of that and performing that together, there's a musical number between three of the main characters, Frederick's self, his wife, and his son. And the song is Now, Soon, and Later, and they each sing one of those songs, and then they all come together and overlap and sing on top of each other. And so keeping the tempo, finding where you come in and where you come out, like, you really have to know the music left, right, backwards, and top to bottom. That was probably the hardest role that I ever played. And it was kind of just an older American accent, which to me, my brain immediately wants to jump into an English accent. So it was hard to kind of bring that back and keep it American, but old, traditional American. So that was probably the two hardest roles I think that I've ever attempted.
Okay, so going back to voiceover, which would you say you prefer the most, being in the booth or being on stage?
Oh, on stage, hands down. There's just something magical about the lights and the smells of the old costumes and being on a stage with people, and in it not just being a show about you that I can go back and edit at any time. It's it's a performance, and you only get one shot at it before people see your mistakes. And to me, the most impressive people that I've worked with are the ones that make a mistake but can recover, and they don't give in to, oh shoot, or say something like that. They make something up, they fill in the space until they can get back online. And that to me is just, man, the magic of it. Anytime that I'm on a stage, whether it's at Shawnee Little Theater or a much larger stage like the Ataloa Theater in Ada, those lights hit your face and it's a different world that you step into. And it's always been something that has been so sacred. I think, not only to me, but anybody that is in theater understands that sense of euphoria from stepping out on stage. So
Yeah, I think for me, I think that makes voiceover more challenging because for me, the biggest engagement is the audience and
mhm.
having that feedback from the people. And so when you're in the booth, you don't have that. I mean, it's just literally you, and you've got to
Yeah,
create the world all your own. But yeah, I find it very interesting that you enjoy the smell of the old costumes. But
yeah, yeah. There's something about mothballs and theater lights that just perk you right up.
right, right. So I think we may have hit on this just a little bit, but how did you actually break into voiceover?
Yeah. So, my brother again was doing a podcast for firefighting in the Air Force. He's been in a little bit longer than I have, and I just went to his house one time and I saw his setup and I saw the microphone, and he had done an audio book on Audible, but it was like a corporate instructional audio. So whenever I heard it, I thought, my gosh, man, you sound nerdy. I could do way better than that, brotherly competition.
Sure,
And
sure.
he's like, well, I'm sure you can since you act, and I've never done anything like this. I was like, well, okay, all right, kudos to you for doing it.
That's fair. Yeah.
And so I started looking at Audible. The website is called acx.com, where you go and audition for stuff like that. And I started just kind of learning the ropes and YouTube and how to work Adobe Audition and how my microphone should be set up and all that. And then started auditioning for audiobooks. And I thought, man, I get to act. Like, this is so cool. I can't go and do theater right now, but what I can do is still do that same passion and commitment and creativity. And I get to make it all my own. Like, I'm my own director. Again, like you said, a lot of that is difficult because you think, man, I sound great, or I sound like absolute dog water. And you never know until you have somebody else listen to it. And you've already put in all the work. And so it's like, oh gosh, that was a lot of work for that not to work. But that was kind of my intro, is my brother really just kind of poking at me. And he was like, man, I think you really need to try and do this. And so I was like, you know what? I think you're right. And I set out. I finally created a demo reel for like radio ads. I haven't gone and created a demo reel for characters or anything like that just yet. But I've met with a couple professionals that are voiceover artists. I've met with Connor Quinn. He was Winnie the Pooh as a child. So if you've ever watched any of the Winnie the Pooh commercials, he was the voice of Christopher Robin. He was the voice of Snickers for years. Like, I mean, the guy has done everything and anything. Has pictures with like Harrison Ford, who is my absolute Hollywood idol. I've always, grew up with Indiana Jones, and he was everybody's Han Solo, the president, Indiana Jones. You can't get much better. Sidetrack. But that I've met with a few coaches and stuff like that, and they were like, man, I really think that you could make this a thing. And so that kind of gave me the boost of confidence that I needed to actually kind of continue searching after it and getting back into it. With my job being what it is, I've kind of had to put it on pause for a few months, but just this last week I got back into sending auditions, and looks like I just got shortlisted for a project that might be starting soon. So we'll see if I make it all the way to actually getting that contract. So,
Well, very cool, very cool. So how long do you think it took before when you started until you got your first audiobook there?
it actually didn't take very long because of my acting background. There's a lot of people that they can talk into a mic and read a script, sure, but the background of having acting and things like that, I learned where the natural pauses are. I learned, inflections, and, should I talk in a higher tone, a softer pitch, or should I bring it down and more somber? And so it was easier for me to kind of pick up on those tones. And I did an audio book. I don't know that I'll ever do another one just because it's a lot of work and sometimes it doesn't pay out. With it being my first book, I decided to do royalties only. Well, my author hasn't pitched the book at all. It hasn't gone anywhere. And I keep kind of messenger every now and again. I'm like, hey, like, are you doing any book fairs? Are you doing anything to promote the book? And I really don't have any contact with her anymore at this point. But that book was looking for a certain character, and it was kind of like me, how I am in real life. I'm kind of goofy, all over the place, accident prone. And so the character fit me really well. until I realized that I was having to voice a British female that was also a main character. And so that was an interesting thing. But, I was like, I got a decent British accent. I think I can do it, just as long as the audience believes that this British female may have a very deep voice. uh, so it was a lot of fun. I'm actually really glad that I did it, even though it didn't really go anywhere, because it helped me learn how I want to edit, how I want to craft what I do. And it was a huge lift for my voice. And so I learned a lot of different characters that I can voice and characters that I absolutely cannot voice. And so it was really just a good practice. It was a good rehearsal for what I can and can't do with voiceover.
Very, very good. Good. I like that you acknowledge the fact what it can and can't do. I like that because some people want to do it all and they think they can do it all, and it's a harsh reality when you realize that they can't.
Oh yeah.
So, but it's not a negative hit. For all those that are listening, it's not necessarily a negative hit if there's something you can't do. I think we were all created to fit into a certain area, and we should be working to be the best that we can be in that spot. So I appreciate you having that mindset to do that. So, are there any favorite characters or projects that you voice that maybe someone might recognize you?
Uh, Probably not with voiceover work yet. I haven't quite busted into that. I did a like a advertisement pretty much for short form videos, TikTok, YouTube, and stuff like that. And it was a one-time deal, and it was for some luggage suitcase that has all these crazy compartments and zippers and things like that. But I can't even find it myself. So I don't know where they used the audio. They paid me for it, and that was that. So I'm not sure where that ended up. But again, so the audiobook that I did, if anybody wants to cringe at my 26 different characters, it was called All Lang Syne, and it was a Saffron Ellis mystery series. So there's several series or several books in the series. But I only voiced one. But again, I really did fall in love with the main character. His name was Wallace. And it fit right into how I am in real life. And so it was super easy to do that one. And so I just kind of built off that character and kind of built the characters around what I knew that main character Wallace to be. So if you're ever down for a murder mystery, that's the one I should suggest, I guess.
There you go. Hey, if you can't promote yourself, what else? What else?
That's
you have?
right.
So, okay. So recently I did an episode with a voice health coach. And so it kind of brings me to this question. How do you keep your voice in shape, especially with the balance between voiceover, the stage, and life as well?
Singing. So I learned a lot of healthy techniques with singing. My voice teacher that I had from college, he was huge on the health of the voice. He didn't care if I could hit a certain pitch or a certain range, or if I knew all the techniques. It was, hey, are you singing healthily? Because if not, you're going to have a very short career. And so I still practice to this day with hand movements and gestures and things like that. Whenever I sing, whenever I talk, I'm very in my booth. I'm about to knock everything down because I use my hands a lot. But a lot of that is to use certain mechanisms in my throat. Whenever I'm singing, I'll bring my hand up above my nose to keep it up in my nasal cavity and not down in my throat, to where I'm flexing and gritting my teeth to hit certain pitches. And again, to this day, I'll be driving in my car probably looking like a crazy person because I'll be touching my neck, touching my nose, touching where I want the sound and the pitch to be. That way I'm not using an unhealthy practice. And the same goes for voice acting. I will make sure that if I'm doing like a voice for a monster or something like that, I can still try and make it sound gritty, but I don't have to ruin my throat doing it to where I can't record lines for longer than 10 minutes, because that would defeat the entire purpose of being able to get all my content recorded and edited in the time frame that most people are looking for. So if you go out and you're a construction worker and you immediately just start sawing into things and cut through electrical lines, you're going to do more damage than you are if you take the time to figure out where those electrical lines are before you make your cut. So that's kind of how I see that. Is I need to make sure that my tool that I have is effective and I'm using it well and I'm treating it well. And so a lot of air through the sinuses, talking through my nose a little bit more than my mouth sometimes, just to get that airflow and get all the pressure off my larynx. Really has seemed to help. And again, like you're doing right now, I know the listeners can't see it, but drinking water, keeping some kind of hydration close by, and keeping everything moving.
Very good, very good. All good points. All good points. Everything. If you guys have listened to that podcast with Melissa Cam, everything he's saying kind of lines up right with that. So remember, keep just like Ryan said, keeping that tool working its best. So very, very good. So what's some advice that you would give to someone in Oklahoma looking to get into voice acting?
Some advice that I would give you is don't go out and buy all the fancy equipment. You don't need a ton to get started. I opted for Adobe Creative Suite, which is expensive. But the only reason is because that's what I've used before. Whenever I was in college, my mass comm degree, I did a lot of work in Adobe and Photoshop and Illustrator and things like that. So I was very familiar with it. But so what you use, the application that you use is called a DAW, which is a digital audio workstation. And so my DAW is Adobe Audition, but there are free ones out there like Audify, I think, something like that. But they're programs that you can use that are great. They take all the same kind of things, and you can do the same kind of work. My microphone that I'm talking on right now is the same microphone that I use for voiceover work. And it's an Audio Technica AT2035. It's like $120. It is not a super fancy mic, and it still gets me jobs. It still gets me recognized whenever I do voice work, and it's still clear. In my booth right now, I know that you guys, again, can't see anything, but it's literally pieced together with duct tape and walls from old cubicles that they were throwing out of a building that I was like, hey, if you guys don't need that, I would love to have it. And so I have literally maybe spent $200 on all of my equipment. If you have a decent PC that you can plug all this stuff into, a cheap mic and some acting ability, I think that it's natural for most people to get into. I think the hardest thing to come by is realizing that it's not like theater where you can go do a couple auditions and you might get something. It's very specific to one person most of the time. It's not a full cast, so there's not so many places that you can fall into, and it'll take maybe hundreds of auditions before you get that one chance. And I'm finding that out now. I literally I have two screens up, and on my right screen I keep open projects that I want to audition for. Right now I have 4 open, and I've already done 2 or 3 just the other day, and I probably won't get any of these. But if you don't put yourself out there, I think that's the biggest thing, is learning to put yourself out there over and over and over and wait for that one break. Some professional voiceover artists that I've talked to said that they still, even at a professional level, probably go through 200 no's before they get a yes. And I think that's the hardest thing, is that it's easy to just put it down and walk away whenever you're not getting the success that you're hoping for. Sorry, that went went off into the weeds. So
no, that's perfect. That's perfect. And there were a lot of things that I myself, I've shared this, that I do voiceover work as well. Certainly not to the success that you have seen, but again, I'm a little over a year into my voiceover journey, and so kind of experiencing the same thing that you are. Currently, when I record, even the podcast and everything, I record right now. We're doing this via Zoom. But normally I do the podcast, I'm recording on Audacity, which is a free
Audacity,
DAW.
that's the one that I was thinking of.
It's a free DAW, and it works great. There's all kinds of editing tools in that. I have an Audio Technica 875R, so it's a shotgun mic hanging just off the screen here. Again, just much like you, my booth is kind of pieced together with some leftover scraps of lumber that I had. I have one panel sitting off to the side here, and a lot of it's moving blankets. That was one of the things that got pushed to me, is that moving blankets do a lot to absorb sound. So I said, okay, we'll go with that. Harbor Freight, you can get them for $4. So it's really, really cool. So I like it too, because it's a way for me to get in here and just let loose, much like you said, do our acting and stuff when we can't be on stage. And
Right.
so I appreciate that and love all of that. And I have found in the time that I've been doing that, There's not, even though the voiceover industry is very saturated, which is again goes to why you said there would be thousands of auditions before you ever see a role. But the number of voiceover talent, active voiceover talents in Oklahoma, the numbers are a little lower.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sure, again, that has to do with a lot of, local uh, availability. We are kind of in the middle of nowhere. We're not directly access to New York or LA, which if you want animation work or you want, stuff like that, that's LA.
Right.
Things. So there's a lot of different stuff, but there's a lot to go on here too. And so there's, a lot of local commercials. There's all kinds of videos and things like that we can lend our voices to. And so it's good to finally, to sit down and talk with somebody that's actually
Yeah.
local in this, in this arena. So I
Oh,
have
for
talked to a
sure.
couple, but again, they're certainly not on the scale of what I talk to. When I in groups and stuff that I'm in, we have, accountability groups and all this other stuff. Everybody's from East Coast, West Coast, things like that. We're right here in the middle, and we don't
Yeah.
get a whole lot of love. So
No, 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 no. And another part of that kind of goes into that is, once COVID hit, I think a lot of people were like, I got a mic in the closet back here. Let me just pick that up. And so
absolutely,
that oversaturated the market. And so I think that made it a lot harder. I'm sure a lot of those folks have kind of found something else that, because it's so difficult to kind of break into sometimes. But a lot of people stayed, and so that did kind of oversaturate and kind of revamp the industry and change it. And so that's something that you kind of have to compete with as well. But being here in Oklahoma, I think that kind of gives us a leg up, actually, because like you said, all those people are on the East Coast and the West Coast and stuff like that. So there's a lot of times that I feel like we can offer as Oklahomans, to different roles. And me being a veteran, sometimes they're looking for war novels or something like that they want that actual like grit, or somebody that's actually kind of seen some things and understands the role. And I don't feel like there's a lot of people that get that outside of, some of the roles that you and I would probably be able to fill. And being from Oklahoma, I think, is important. I know there's a lot of people that can't wait to get out of Oklahoma, but I love Oklahoma. It's been home. I was born and
same.
raised here. I absolutely love it, and I have no plans on leaving it. So anytime I can promote where I'm from, and people are like, "You're from Oklahoma?" Yes, absolutely. And there's more like me, so get ready.
Yeah, and I think that's a good part too, good point there too. And with this being an Oklahoma podcast, I think this is something that we can all talk about. That so many people outside of Oklahoma have such an idea in their brain of the
Hmm.
stigma, if you will, of what Okies are, and so it kind of changes when I've had some coaching sessions and things like this, and I always try to ask my coaches, okay, where do you think I'm from? And I've had things from Ohio and, was one, Illinois or something like that. So very Midwestern, but nobody ever guessed that I was from Oklahoma. And so I think that goes to, again, one of the things I would suggest to anybody interested in voice work is definitely make sure you have brushed up on your acting.
Yes.
Much like Ryan was saying, his first uh, saddle that he got on was an audio book with 27 characters. If you don't have some type of acting range in your pocket, you're not going to be able to tackle something like that. But even in something less than that, fewer characters, just a simple commercial read. If you don't know how to interpret the script, if you don't know how to delay or sorry relay that information in the directions that are given to you, then you're going to get a no. And so that kind of goes back to learning on stage, learning how to take directions, learning how to interpret scripts, and all that kind of other stuff. So I'm glad that we can kind of share this stuff with the people that are listening, and we may have actors out there in Oklahoma that are interested in voiceover, and so that could be another aspect of Oklahoma on stage that we talk about. So that's great.
Yeah.
So transitioning just a little bit, we talked about that you are a member of the Air National Guard. How did that journey begin?
Oh, so my wife and I, we got married in 2012. We wanted to wait until we graduated college, and so we were freshly new out of college, and hoping for the world and trying to figure out what we wanted to do. And I had my fresh, new, shiny mass comm degree, doing radio, video photography, graphic design, all that stuff. Well, what I hadn't realized is that East Central was a little bit behind in their mass comm department, and so whenever I had graduated with that shiny new degree, it was already kind of obsolete with everything that I knew. And so I was kind of behind the curve, and I applied to, gosh, 80, 90, 100 different places for a career, trying to get started. But everybody wanted me to have the experience and didn't really care so much for the degree, and kind of burned me a little bit. I lost out on 2 dream jobs to where it was down to me and one other guy, and I lost out on both of them.
Oh,
And that stung. And so I'm sitting on the couch one day in the evening watching TV with my wife, feeling sorry for myself and trying to figure out, like, man, how am I going to provide for my family I want to start? How am I going to do this? And we were watching Cops, and I was like, you know what? That sounds fun. I think I want to do that, just kind of playing around with my wife. And she was like, I think you should. Well, the only place I wanted to work was my hometown of Shawnee, and because I like people, and I think that that's a big important factor going into law enforcement, is you have to have a love for people, because you're always going to see them at their worst. And so I applied, and I had never been in a real fight in my life. I had never raised my voice at somebody else in confrontation, and for some reason, I was number one pick out of over 100 people. It was absolutely a God thing, and I got placed in that position. And the first time I'd ever been in a cop car, I'd never done a ride along or anything like that. I was already wearing a uniform and a gun with a commission, and it was nerve wracking, but I fell in love with it. I did that for 8.5 years. But about halfway through my law enforcement career, I always wanted to be in the military. My brother joined in, I believe, 2008, 2009, in the Air Force. And I always thought, man, I feel like I'm missing out on that service. I love America. I love our country. I'm very patriotic whenever it comes to talking about the US of A. And I always felt that I still needed to serve more. And so I had a buddy that was in the Air National Guard. He had kind of been in my ear for a couple of years. I was like, no, I think I'm going to leave law enforcement and go serve full time. And so I had a degree, so that means that I could straight commission into being an officer in the military. And I went and took all the testing, passed it. But then my buddy in the guard was still kind of in my ear, and he's like, hey man, you can do both still. You can do law enforcement and military. And so I was like, okay. He's like, I'm a pilot out here at this unit. It's the 137th out there in the Air National Guard in Oklahoma City off Will Rogers. And he's like, we fly a really cool plane. It does some really cool stuff. Most of that I can't really talk about here. But it does ISR. So, intelligence, reconnaissance, surveillance plane. And he's like, you can either go for a pilot and they'll train you to be a pilot, or you can go for a CISO. And I was like, cool, what's a CISO? And so that's a combat systems officer. And so that person sits in the middle of the plane, and we run the cameras and things like that. So we're doing overwatch for like special operation forces, things like that. And so I was like, man, that sounds really neat. I have a healthy fear of flying. I don't think I should probably be in control. So I'll look into the CISO position. And I ended up with the Guard. It's very much almost like a fraternity or a sorority. You go and hang out a few drill periods, and if they like you, they'll offer you an invitation to come and apply and be interviewed. And that happened, and I ended up making it. And I was in the military, and I sat around with it being the Guard for a little while, waiting on dates, and went off to officer training school, commissioned as a second lieutenant, knowing absolutely nothing about anything. But ended up kind of working my way through it. And off on a side note, love being in the military, but I ended up having a stomach disease I didn't know about. And so I got in the plane, finished all my flight school, got back to Oklahoma City, and ended up finding out that I had the stomach disease while I was in training here. And so I've been out of the plane for actually 4 years and been fighting that whole process of getting back in the plane. Recently, just last month, I finally got granted full access back to the plane. So I'm qualified to get back in the aircraft. But it was almost too little too late, because now we're in a transition, because we're now getting rid of this aircraft that we have, going to a new mission. And so that means a new aircraft. And so I have to wait for this aircraft to come back online before I can get back into it. So in the meantime, I've kind of filled some other roles. I know you and I kind of talked about it before the show started, but if you want me to go ahead and describe that role, or okay.
Absolutely. Sure. Go ahead.
So that role that I do right now, so our guard unit is one of, I believe there's only 4 other units that do what's called MST. It's called Mission Sustainment Team. And so what we do is Air Force Special Operation Command, AFSOC, is pushing for a new mission set, and they're focusing on agile combat deployment. And so what that means is that they want these airmen that are in the Air Force to be multi-capable airmen. So everybody has a job in the military, or what we call an AFSC, and that's a job classification. Like mine is CISO, so that's my job as the combat systems officer. But what they want these people to do that are on this team, they want them to be higher level and multi-capable. And what that means is that we put on several jobs and we do them all together at the same time. And we go and we create forward operating sites, or forward operating bases, as some of the older terminology is, for this new aircraft to land at. It's an aircraft that can land out in the middle of nowhere if it wants to. And so our job is to protect people, feed people, sustain them, set up our own facilities, tear it down, and be quick. And so it's called Agile Combat Employment, like I said. And so the past almost year, I have been the officer in charge of this new group and going out and proofing these concepts. And we have done 2 major exercises and gone out in the middle of nowhere and set up these camps and set up the tents and made jumps across islands, across different continents and things like that to try and prove these concepts. So it's been really challenging, but that's what I've been doing full time. And that's why I had to step away for a few months from voice acting, actually, was just the lift of that job. So that's what I've been doing pretty much in the current, and that's what I'm still doing now. Now we're done proving the concepts, and now I have all the fun of writing all the paperwork and the SOPs. So that's the joys of my life right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Paperwork is a lovely thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's a good time. I love it.
Yeah. 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 So how do you balance and kind of we've hit, I think, on this a little off and on, but how do you balance your military service with your creative pursuits?
It's been difficult. Law enforcement actually was a much harder challenge for that than military, just because right now I get to have kind of a normal schedule throughout the weeks. It's just every now and again I have to go and go out to the field or have drill weekend. And so I've actually had a more normal schedule than I've ever had, and it's pretty easy for me to look at my boss, we're a smaller office, and be like, "Hey, boss, do you care if I go do this? And I'll put in the work tonight, or I'll make it up." And he's like, "No, go ahead." And he was also in performance arts and stuff growing up, so he kind of understands some of my creativity that needs to run and escape. So that's been really easy. But like I said, just sometimes things come up, and I have to focus and prioritize my career, and then do this for fun. I think the hardest balance for me isn't so much the work balance; it's the family life, work, and do all the things that I'm passionate about balance. I think that's really the hardest tipping point. My wife and I think most of our talks are usually, "Hey, you're always so busy. Can you maybe lessen it up a little bit?" And of course, I'm always running full steam, and I don't see it until she brings it up. And she's a very patient and very good woman to put up with all of my avenues of creativity. Because outside of this, I do blacksmithing and bladesmithing and stuff that I've been getting into. And I love fishing and just doing anything outside with my hands. And it sometimes drives her up the wall that I'm like, "Oh yeah, I have a family." So
we're very thankful for supportive spouses. So
yes, yes, I
so
would absolutely
for
be
all
in a
of you
ditch.
spouses that are out there listening, we haven't forgotten you either. Most of us couldn't be where we are today without you, and it's good for me having a spouse that also loves the theater and loves to be a part of that.
Yeah,
So it's not so much of a distance between the two of us, but
right.
what doing what we do to the love of the art form does take us out of the house quite a bit, and so we have to find ways in between to make up for that. So
Yeah, which I think that's super cool that you both are into that. My wife, she had to give up and give a speech one time in college and passed out because she was in front of people. So it's definitely not her scene. But I think that is what impresses her the most about watching theater and watching people go up there and do something that she could never, or want to do. And so she really gets impressed with people's talent. So she likes the theater to the point that it's something that always impresses her. So I think that that's the good thing that I have going for me, that she understands that I need to do this. So
That's one of the other connections that Ryan and I have is that my wife was actually in his returning performance of Christmas Carol, so they shared the stage together, and so yeah, there's a lot, and also she has kind of have a similar connection to him because she was a music education major as well, so they kind of share that. So there's a lot of connections between Ryan and myself. So has your experience in the Guard influenced or impacted your work as a performer or a storyteller?
yeah, yeah. So obviously my life changes have been pretty drastic. Getting out of college, going into law enforcement, and it does change you. I don't see how it wouldn't, whenever you're in it long enough. And then the military is kind of the same way. So, I'm not this happy-go-lucky kid anymore. I've got a little bit more grit and stuff like that, and probably a little less room or sympathy for stupidity than I used to have. Um, Not saying that I won't be nice to you, so please come say hi. But yeah, I'm a little more business now, I think sometimes. And I getting back into theater has kind of reawoken this kid that I used to love to be, and happy with everything. And so I really appreciated the balance that it's kind of brought back into. Not everything is always so heavy. So it really helped, and it was almost like a therapy for me a little bit, getting back into something creative that I can open up and be that again. And it always takes me back. I always think back to college and to my voice teacher and things like that. And my voice teacher and I are still really good friends. He's a family friend. He loves my wife and my daughter and our dog and our cat, and we visit often. And he's still in Oklahoma. He's actually about to move back to Virginia to continue his teaching career. So we'll miss him a lot. But I think that the balance between military and law enforcement and theater are really balancing, and I'm really appreciative to have both of those things in my life, because both of those have formed who I am. Honestly, that my creativity and music and theater and voiceover, and the other side of the coin, I have law enforcement, military, and my family, and things like that. So they all have kind of come to this point to make me who I am. So I couldn't be more thankful for all the things that I've done and all the paths that I didn't necessarily choose, but they kind of chose me, for making me who I am. And I'm a little bit of a stigma in the theater. I believe that I'm not the typical person that you would find backstage in a theater, with my background, and I enjoy that. Actually, it's kind of something that I can be like, look, theater's for everybody. Being creative is for everybody. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a certain type of person to enjoy this or have fun with it. And that's what I love. Is I definitely don't fit into a lot of spaces that are in theater, but I do because it's still something I love, and that's something that we all share. It's not so much the personalities. We can all go and have fun on the stage and have completely different outlooks on life, different personalities, but our love for theater and for the art is kind of what keeps everything held together, and we all have a great time and perform shows and knock the socks off people.
Yeah, I love it. The two things I really drew out of that whole comment that you said is number one, everybody has a space in theater. It takes all kinds. I mean, I've come across people that are, you know, very much well into the professional realm. CEOs, things like that. I've worked with doctors. I currently, well, off and on, as of recently, I've worked with a college professor. Uh, just a little bit, as well as some professional actors. On the same token, law enforcement, military, all of that. If you think for 1 minute that you're like, well, I just there's nothing really for me in there. Sure, there is. There's always something. And I've had conversations with people where it's like even those that may not necessarily have the acting chops down yet, man, there's always stuff behind the scenes that everybody can get involved with, and it just kind of loops everybody in. But the second thing you said that really kind of just touched, I talk about it a lot as far as my journey and everything. But what you said is that theater is therapy. It's a great way for us to, as an old saying goes, exercise our demons,
Yep.
and to, let out some of our stuff and just be someone else for a little bit and things like that. And so, theater is always kind of my therapy. So I say that a lot. So I'm glad to hear someone else say have the similar mindset.
Oh yeah.
So, are there any memorable moments where the two worlds, military and theater, have collided?
Luckily not yet. I feel like that may happen with, doing lyric this winter. Just because we are in this transition in the military between aircraft, and there's a good chance that I'll be one of the first people that trains to transition into this aircraft. And so that may kind of go at the same time as me starting up, this new role of trying to be a swing understudy and learn all these different roles. Um, so that is a little concerning for me, just to try and balance all that. And again, family life, because that's number one. And I need to prioritize that above all else. And I've even had to step out of a role once we started rehearsal, even at Shawnee Little Theater, because my family, it took a toll on them harder than I thought it would. And that's something that I won't compromise. I won't compromise what it's going to do to my family. And I had to gracefully bow out, and it hurt. It hurt the production. It hurt myself, because it was going to be my first role back before A Christmas Carol. And I really hate that happened. And I think I probably lost a little bit of faith from the directors. So if there's ever anything in the future that I would want to do for them, it would probably be, kind of a sting to trust me. And I understand that completely. But the one thing that I won't bend the rules on is how my family feels about it. Because if they don't enjoy theater and they don't enjoy me being in theater, then that would just hurt so much, that something that I love and I'm passionate about, they hate because of this connotation that I pretty much put around it, with it taking dad away or taking the husband away, and things like that. Um, but as far as the military conflict, not yet. I think we'll probably approach that sometime in the near future. Luckily, everything's kind of worked out right now that I can go and do those things. And again, like I said, my boss that I have right now, my commander, is understanding of how passionate I am and how much I love to do this kind of thing. And his son was actually in A Christmas Carol. He was the violin player and had a lot of the set changes and scenes like
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
So I kind of got him in because he said, "Hey, my son loves theater. Is it too late for him to have something?" I said, "Well, I don't know. We're about to start rehearsals, so it's probably too late for him to have a role, but maybe there's something." So they found him that, and so he's into theater and things like that. So it's very nice to have somebody that understands that.
So have you ever had a chance to do anything theatrical or whatever in the military?
Kind of. Yeah. So, at graduations, so my graduation, whenever I got my wings at flight school, I sang the national anthem. And that flight school, that particular one, is at Pensacola Naval Air Station, and that's where the Blue Angels are. That's their home station. And so every day at 10:30, they're up there ripping up the skies and doing just insane things that no human being should ever do in an aircraft. And it was cool because I was in the middle of singing the national anthem. It's at the swell right in the middle, and I'm just letting it rip. And I've got American flags all around me. I'm in my dress blues. There's just all sorts of patriotism flowing through the room. And as I hit that top note, the Blue Angels just come screaming over the building, and it's a glass roof, and so you could see them. And it was almost like it was planned, and it was not planned at all whatsoever. It was just coincidence and happenstance. But that was probably one of the coolest moments of my entire life, was singing the national anthem at the top of my lungs and seeing the Blue Angels just scream across. But yeah, so there are still some things, and luckily I don't think the cat's been let out of the bag just yet at my base that I sing the national anthem, because almost every month there's retirement ceremonies and things like that. And when they find somebody that can do it, you're stuck in that role for life. And so I haven't I haven't really let the cat out of the bag too much for them to come find me every drill weekend and be like, "Hey man, you want to put on your blues and come sing?" No, I really don't want to put on my blues because I probably can't fit them right now. I'm a little bit thicker than I was than the last time I put them on.
Well, I can't guarantee any of them are gonna be listening to this, but you never know.
You
So
never know.
you could be saddled sooner than you think. So looking towards the future, we've talked a little bit about you looking at this lyric opportunity. Are there any other productions or roles or things like that, either on the stage or behind the mic, that you have coming up?
No, not really. So lyric is really all that I'm trying to focus on right now, other than doing some voiceover work and just auditions, throwing things out. Usually for the voiceover stuff, I can't commit to anything too long because I just don't know what my future looks like with the military and with live theater and things like that. And so usually I try to do short form things, shorter advertisement, shorter roles. And so I'll always kind of keep pressing with that in the background, I think. But as far as theater, nope, lyric is the only thing I've got coming up. Um, I I don't see myself really biting off too much more than that until that's over, and I kind of see what that's like, because that it's very different than a local theater with how they put things on. And it's you come knowing all of your material, and you've got 2 weeks, week and a half of rehearsal together, and then you're on. And the hard thing about the swing role, the swing understudy role, is that I have to pretty much learn, you know, 3 to 6 different parts depending on the night, and they can come up to me the day of and be like, "Hey, you're going on as Jacob Marley tonight. Good luck." So learning the blocking and the scripts and all that stuff, and just being ready to go at the drop of a hat, that's going to be a big undertaking. So I'm going to focus on that for right now before I bite off on anything else. But in the future, yeah, I've always had a dream of being on the stage at Lyric, and so if I can get on the stage with this, that'll be a dream come true, and hopefully that'll only open more doors for me to be able to perform with them in the future, and maybe step into some bigger roles and things like that.
Very cool. So, are there any dream roles or productions that you would like to be in?
So many. Yeah, I would love to do Man of La Mancha. So I just sang actually at the Maybe Gare Museum this past Thursday last week. So now 2 Thursdays ago. And I sang The Impossible Quest, The Impossible Dream, sorry, The Quest. I sang that for them because they were asking people that had performed with Shawnee Little Theater before to come and perform. And if you guys didn't go to that, man, you missed some incredible talent. There was so many incredible performers, and just the amount of talent that were in that one little room off in the museum was insane. But yeah, definitely would like to be Don Quixote. And then, oh boy, I would love to be Javert and Les Mis. That would be another good one. But I would have to say that my top role that I've always wanted to do is Sweeney Todd. Man,
Interesting.
it's a darker musical for sure, and it's not something that I typically like, but for some reason I would love to do that role. I have listened to on repeat on Spotify to the most current Sweeney Todd on Broadway with Josh Groban. And man, if you guys haven't heard that soundtrack, go listen to it. It's incredible. The talent is just off the charts. I think it's Anna Lee Ashford that plays the female lead, and she is incredible. I mean, just knocked my socks off with her performance. So if you haven't heard it, go listen to it. It's definitely worth it.
Excellent.
What about
I,
you?
I
Okay,
like the I
now we
like
got
the
to ask you.
versatility that you've got there. I mean, it's kind of a little all over the place, but I
Oh, I
like
love it.
it.
I
I
love
like
I love to change it up and shake it up and do different things. I think that's what makes acting fun. Is if I did the same thing over and over, I would get so tired of it, and people would put me in a box, right? They'd be like, okay, you're
Sure.
this actor, and that's all you can do. I'd be like, no, 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 wait, let
Yeah,
me show you
just stick
something
around.
else.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
like it. I like
All
it.
right. So, what are your dream roles?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. I have this conversation a lot with people, and I try to throw what we're just talking about right here, in any conversation. And when it gets turned around, for me, uh, I grew up, I was all about comedy, and
Mm-hmm.
I love making people laugh. I've always been the class clown. I've always been, all that kind of other stuff. But as my wife points out, I'm very good with the drama as well. And so for me, at this point, and it has been for a long, long time, probably my first and foremost dream role, or even not necessarily just a role, but the show. I would love to direct the show, and that's Death of a Salesman. I would love to
Yeah.
play Willie Loman, like I said, or direct the show. That is such a powerful show, and I
Yes.
love the message behind it and everything else. And the first time I mean, I'd read it, and I think we'd seen a stage play of it. Then I saw the movie with Dustin Hoffman, and it just okay, yep, that's it, that's the one. It has just been with me ever since, and I've never come across a production of it, you know,
Right.
at least at a point where that I could be a part of it. And so that's kind of something that I'm working towards at this point in my career. I've just now started getting into directing. I just was assistant director on Julius Caesar just a few months back, and I'm actually looking at making my quote directorial debut next spring.
Very
But
nice.
I can't say anything about that yet.
Right.
But yeah, definitely building my chops and everything to get the opportunity to bring that to the stage. So one way or the other. Either I'm okay, either directing it or being Willie Loman. So
Yeah, of course. That would be
so
great.
so let's see here. Uh, what's one creative goal? And I know we're talking about goals and things like that. What's one creative goal that you're chasing right now that scares you just a little bit?
Um, Again, it probably comes back to the prioritizing my time. And I would say that my passion for the many different things that I like to do is kind of scary because I'm good at a lot of things, but a master of none. I know you hear that a lot from people, but I am one
Same,
of those
same.
people that I don't know if it's ADHD or what, but I will pick something up and I will go full bore into it for a few months, and then I'll drop it, and then I'll find the next thing, and then I have all these passions, and they're all scattered. And um, theater has always been a constant, at least that I can always come back to, and it's something that kind of came natural for me, and so I'm very thankful for that, for just some God given grace on having a talent that doesn't fade too hard. And so really for me, it's just prioritizing where my focus lies. I think that that's the biggest thing that scares me with anything that I do is, okay, am I glorifying God? Am I glorifying my family? And am I using my talents for something that is good? And so whatever I do, I try to make sure that I talk with my wife and that we're on the same page with where my focus is. And sometimes I get off and she has to correct me, and I'll be stubborn and push back on it. But again, like we said before, we're lucky that we have very understanding wives, and that they're our rock and good to us for how bullheaded I'm sure that both of us can be. Um, and so I would say that that's probably the biggest thing for me. Not so much like a primary focus or one thing that in the future is scary, but just prioritizing my time and making sure that my family still comes first.
Yeah, and that's excellent. You say that about being bullheaded. I think I shared a meme on Facebook that telling people to pray for my wife because she's constantly in a battle between she married her soulmate and also I didn't sign up for this. So,
Yes. Oh,
and
my
I
poor
think,
wife. Because
yeah,
whenever we got married, I was a server at Chili's, and she was the one that had a career, and so she has seen me, become a cop, going through law enforcement, and be like, hey, that's not enough. I want to join the military. So now she's a law enforcement spouse and a military spouse. And then I'm like, hey, I still have all these creative things that I want to do. And so she's always having to chase me down with all my different things. And so God bless her. She's an incredible woman. I don't know how she puts up with me the way that she does, but I think between grace and prayer and probably screaming into a pillow every now and again, I think, she's kind of figured out how to balance that as well.
yeah, I think God gives certain people in this world certain tools to deal with people like us. And
Yes.
so they're that's just their given talent. So, okay, I mentioned this before we went on the air, and this is something that I like to do as we start to wrap things up. Is I always try to come up with some curveball questions just to kind of mess with your head, mess with your inner workings and all that kind of stuff.
All right.
Especially after a lengthy interview, kind of diving through your history and going through all of your dirty laundry and that kind of stuff. Now we're going to pick your brain as well. And so,
Bring it.
again, these are just for fun. It's just the things that come off the top of your head. And so, I actually there's one. This isn't it, but I have a version of this that I did once before called the lightning round. And I would literally just throw questions out just to see what the responses were. And
Right.
so anyway, some curveball questions. First one: if your life was a musical, what would the opening number be called?
Oh gosh. Can't make up his mind.
I like it.
Like I said, just spread everywhere. Just can't make up his mind, and it would just be a bunch of confusion and different lights and flashes and dance numbers that don't go together, coming to a point to just one man on the stage with a single spotlight on him, going, I don't know.
I like it. I like it. Okay, you're okay. Here, scenario. You're stranded backstage with only 3 props. What are they, and how do you survive?
3 props. I'm backstage, and how do I survive? I would take a door, just a door frame that has a door that can open because there's so much that you can do with that, making entrances and exits. And I think I could probably do a comedy skit with just a door for a good probably 15 minutes. Just it falling over, slamming, not opening. You can kind of vamp for style with that. I would bring a key that wouldn't be found until the very end after I couldn't get through the door several times. And then I don't know that I would even need a third one. I think I could do a lot with just a door and a key.
Okay,
Because
that's
like you,
very creative.
I love comedy. And so I
Yeah.
love the stupid gag skits. Like those are the ones that get me the most. I love super clever comedy, but the thing that just has been a staple, I think, of any, kid that grew up in the late 80s and 90s is just slapstick comedy and just
Oh, yeah.
the gag comedy. And I mean, grew up with Home Alone and things like that. And it just, for some reason, it has a special place in my heart. And so anytime that I get to do it, I really like to embrace it.
Oh, see, I would even go back a little bit further than that, even into the 70s. I don't know, a little before your time, but a little the 70s with the original Saturday Night
Oh,
Live.
yes, yes.
Back when comedy was actually funny.
You,
And
you go back
people
to
people.
Chaplin even. It's all that slapstick, just
Yes, of course,
creative
yeah.
prop work and
Laurel
man,
and Hardy, the Three Stooges, all
yes,
of it. Yes. Oh,
yes.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's comedy. So I like it. Okay. So what's the weirdest warm-up ritual you have ever seen or done?
Weirdest warm up. Man, my voice teacher would be so mad at me all the time because I'm not a night person. I mean, sorry, I'm a night person. I'm not a morning person. And even though my voice lessons would be at 10 a.m., there would be some times that I would sleep in into my voice lesson and I would show up not warm at all. Throat is completely cold and shut. And he would make me step out into the hallway and do my warm-ups for all the world to hear. And it's a big like marble floor hallway where his office was in an atrium. And so I don't know if it was punishment or if it was to try and get my voice to carry, but I'll never forget actually like one of my very first voice lessons with him. It was in a little black box, and he takes me out to the steps in front of the science hall there at East Central University, and it's in the middle of class change. So there's 100 plus people out walking around the campus. And he's like, all right, can you see all the way down Main Street? Because the top of the stairs of Science Hall go all the way straight down Main Street in Ada. And he's like, I want you to sing to somebody at the very end of that street. Go. And there's people everywhere. I'm brand new to singing. My voice probably sounded like a slaughtered chicken. But he made me do that warm up all the way down the street, and there was no getting out of it. So I just owned it and did it. So that was probably the most awkward and embarrassing warm up that I've ever done. And still to this day, he will laugh about it.
I like it. Do you still do that? Do you still sing like that?
Probably not like that, no. But I do a lot of warm-ups in my car where it's just me and myself. I'm sure if you pulled up next to me at a stoplight, you would be wondering why it looked like I'm probably fighting myself or screaming at myself. But yeah, I still do all the classical, warm-ups. Mama made me mash my M&Ms and get all that kind of stuff and make sure. So one of the warm-ups that he taught me was what we call the albatross, and it's working on getting your pitch, for singing up into your nasal cavity and bringing your notes up higher. And that would literally just be going, huh, huh, and getting it up there, and then finally holding it, huh, and just holding it up there to get the airflow going through your nose and get that pitch up to a higher plateau. And that's probably the craziest warm up that I still do is the albatross.
All right. All right. So if you could voice any animated character, past, present, or future, who would it be and why?
Oh man. Wow. That's a heavy question. Boy, there's so many good cartoons that I had, growing up. Um Probably one of the Ninja Turtles from back in the day in the 90s. Man, I loved watching the Ninja Turtles as a kid, and so that was something, or a video game voiceover, something like that from a video game that I used to play as a kid, or something probably along those lines.
Okay. Very, very good. Okay. What's one thing your audience would be surprised to learn about you? Something we
I
haven't
think
covered yet.
I would say I think we've probably spilled all the creative beans that I've got with being different for this genre typically. Let's see what's something like I said earlier, probably that I blacksmith and bladesmith. I got into
As I
that.
say, you threw that out towards the end, and so I think that
Yeah,
one kind of, yeah.
yeah.
So how
So
did you get started in that?
well, watching Forged in Fire, like most of the people, it seems these days, and I was like, man, that looks like a lot of fun, and I wonder what it feels like to hit hot steel. And there's a forge in Hera, Oklahoma, so another Oklahoma thing. They're called Gargoyle Garage and Forge. Check them out. They open up their forge just about every Saturday, but the second Saturday of every month they have what they call an open house, and anybody can come out. And it's $35 to use everything in the shop: the grinders, the forge, their hammers, their tools, everything. And the amount of knowledge and skill in that shop, because you have blacksmiths that show up, the owners themselves. There is a guy that co-owns that forge that actually won Forged in Fire. So he's a knife maker and he holds classes out there. And
Very
so like, you
cool.
know what? I'll go check it out because I've always wanted to do it. And I friggin' fell in love with it. And it's another one of those things that somehow came naturally to me. And so I've been making tomahawks for people. So I've crafted some of that. I just finished my first like full up knife that I hand forged everything on. So again, it's just kind of a weird little hobby that I fell into that it's therapy again, just you got anger issues, go hit some hot
Go,
steel
yeah,
and it'll
go
fix
bang
it.
on
Yeah.
some metal. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So you don't have your own forge at your house yet or anything?
No, I've bought a lot of the things to kind of start piecing it together slowly because that does cost a lot of money. Forges themselves aren't that expensive, but it's all the other things that come around. An anvil, a decent anvil, you're going to pay $400 just for a chunk of steel to put steel on to hit steel. And so it's just kind of a weird thing. But you've got the grinders, you've got the drill press, all that stuff that you need to really make something out of it if you want to try and make any kind of money out of it. Now, if you're just doing it as a hobby, there's all sorts of cheap ways that you can just kind of make some fun things here and there. But I like to try and any talent that I have, I want to make sure that it's something that I probably could be profitable with. And so I typically can't just settle for getting the basic things. And that's what was so cool about voiceover work, is that I can still make money with the basic things. I didn't have to go all crazy and go all out and get all the craziest stuff. Like this headset that I'm wearing right now during this podcast is a gaming headset that I've had for probably close to 10 years now, and it still works great. Like just things that you have laying around you can probably use. And
Oh, sure.
Sorry, got off topic
No,
there.
no, I like it. I like it. That's why I said stories. We love stories.
Yes.
All right, last thing, and I didn't realize all of the stuff we were going to talk about when we got into this, but with your singing background and everything, what is your go-to karaoke song when no one's watching?
Oh, that's easy. My Way by Frank Sinatra. I will sing that one, and I will sing Colder Weather by Zach Brown Band. And usually I get a pretty good reaction out of both of those because they're hard. They're a harder song, and it's a little bit easier having training, and it's something that I'm confident in doing. And I mean, everybody loves karaoke because it's not about how good you are; it's about how confident you are that makes it so entertaining. I think probably the best karaoke I ever saw was actually in some random pub that my wife and I had walked in during our 10-year anniversary in Seattle. And it was the craziest scene for karaoke. It was just full of all these different kinds of folks and people. And man, they were pouring their heart into it. Whether it sounded good or not, it was the most entertaining karaoke I've ever seen. So it's all about confidence. If you guys are going to do karaoke, just be confident.
Yeah, if you're going to get up there, just let it
Own
rip.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, just rock. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I've heard some horrible karaoke, but they were all in it, and
Yes.
that's what it was all about. And so, we've got a group that I've acted with on a fairly regular basis as of late, and that's kind of one of our post production
Yes.
celebrations. We all go karaoke, so it's a good time. So, well, that's all the questions I have, Ryan. I appreciate you coming and being a part of this. Hey, man, thanks a lot. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for being a good sport with the questions and for letting us dive into your world and everything. We really appreciate you giving us your
Yeah,
time.
absolutely. Hey, thanks for having me. Everybody loves to talk about themselves, so it wasn't too painful.
Yeah, it's better than a root canal.
Yeah.
So again, like I said, thank you. And again, once as I said, as we open up, thank you for your service, and we appreciate all that you do, keeping our country safe.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So for everybody else that's listening at home, we appreciate your time as well. We appreciate you taking the time to find us and listen to us. So please keep listening, give us a rating and review, and no matter what you do, keep supporting the arts.
Oklahoma on stage.